Hey guys, Jank from ultimaterc.com here with another URC how-to. This time I'm covering the very mundane task of threading a receiver antenna into a receiver tube. Now, it sounds super simple, but if you've ever tried to do this with a really tangled up wire or a long one, you've probably encountered a lot of difficulties with it. So I'm just going to show you some quick little tips and techniques for how to get through it quickly and easily, so this will no longer be a problem or no longer be a frustration. So here we go. Okay, so check it out. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this mess into this little tube. And the problem is that this little tube is so small that it's barely going to fit this mess when it's perfectly straight. So when it's like this, it's pretty much going to be impossible. What you'll try to do, let's say if you're being impatient, is just kind of pull it out a little bit, try to stick it in the end, and what's going to happen is before long it's going to start doing like this. You're going to be trying to push it in and it's just going to bend, and the more that it bends, the more that it gets all kinked up in there, and then the harder it is to put it in. So the most important thing to do is get this wire really straight. Now of course, if you have a newer 2.4 gigahertz radio system, then you've got this nice little short antenna and you really don't have to worry about this very much. But not everybody is able to afford a 2.4 gigahertz system. Not everybody wants to have a 2.4. If your old AM or FM radio set is working fine, then go ahead, have fun, use it. To get this straight, there are various things that you can do. One thing that I like to do is just go up to the edge of a table or in any kind of hard surface that has a nice straight edge to it, and then just pull the wire across it carefully. You can also use, I like to use the handle of an X-Acto blade just to make sure you don't cut yourself. It's good for this. What you want to do is just bend the wire over this object and then hold it down with your thumb so that it's getting good pressure on there. And don't pull from the receiver, just pull wire against wire and just keep it fairly taut. Go on across, and because this is a round surface, it's going to put a little bit of natural coiling into this. That's okay. Just each time you go across, just try to turn the wire a little bit so you're not always coiling it in the same direction. And you just want to do this a handful of times. Don't put too much pressure on it, otherwise you'll start stretching out the insulating layer on the outside, and if you really pull too hard, if you get really gung-ho about it, you could just rip the thing in two. So don't try to show off your strength here, guys. Just be patient with it. A little bit of firm amount. You can already see that there are less tangles in this, and it's more just straight coils. And over time, start just pulling it out, and it gets straighter and straighter and straighter. Another thing that you can do if you're in a pinch and you don't want to bother getting a tool or anything, just go against the side of your thumbnail like this and use that as your surface. And then make sure right at the end that you've got this fairly straight, because it's very important to have the end as straight as you can, because that's basically what's going to set the tone for everything that's going to come after this. Okay, so this is a lot less of a mess than I started out with. It's not perfectly straight yet, but it's good enough to use. And here's the tube that I want to use. It's just your regular sized RC antenna tube. Fairly long length on this one. And the trick to success with this, if you've had trouble, especially if you've had trouble with this particular wire before, use a little bit of lubrication. The two types of lubrication that I found to work the very best are white lithium grease and Tamiya ceramic grease. White lithium grease is available at hardware stores. It's a great stuff for lightly lubricating pinions and spur gears, anything that wants to have just a very light lube to it that's going to last for a while. And Tamiya's ceramic grease is actually a boron nitride, and it's very similar in consistency to white lithium grease. It comes out as a white paste, so that also works very well. If you don't have either of these, another thing that can be used is dry graphite lubricant. This is just a powder, and you can just get a little bit of this on your fingers and just use it to add a little bit of slickness to that. So I'm just going to use the Tamiya ceramic grease because that's what I have right now. I'm just going to put a little dab of it, just a small, tiny little amount on the tip of my finger here, and just kind of squish that in so you barely even see it. It's just enough to get the wire wet, and I'm just going to run that over the wire, just barely getting a little bit of lubrication on it. What this is going to do is allow that wire to slip right through there with very little friction. Normally it likes to get stuck at various points, especially if you're on a warm day and especially if you're in a humid environment. Make sure that you do not use a petroleum-based grease like WD-40, which really isn't a lubricant, it's for loosening things, but don't use a 3-in-1 household oil, don't use motor oil, don't use silicone shock oil. Make sure you use a ceramic-based grease or white lithium grease or something that's completely dry like powder. And the final trick that I'm going to use here, this is a super secret ancient pro racers special edition way to get the wire into the tube. Notice the way that I'm holding this. I've actually got some of the wire in between two fingers, my thumb and my index finger, and I just have a little bit of it sticking out. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put the wire into the tube. I'm going to put the tube over the wire, and I'm just feeding it in between my fingers. So I've got a little bit of it in there now, and I'm not going to hold it back from here. I'm going to hold it right from this point, so I actually have a little bit of pressure on the tip of the tube, and push the tube over it. Move back, push the tube over it, and you're sliding the tube over the wire. And what this is doing is it's keeping the wire straight as it goes in. It's keeping the wire from having a chance to start bunching up right there at the end of the tube. And you can see this is going in almost like there's no tube at all, almost like there's nothing. With the combination of straightening it out, using a little bit of the right amount of lubricant, and being careful about how to insert it, putting the tube over the wire, not putting the wire into the tube, comes piece of cake. And that's it. No sweat, no hassle. So the next time you see somebody post a forum thread and they're saying they're having trouble getting an antenna straight into the antenna tube, or the next time you have an antenna wire that's this long that you need to get into one of these tiny little tubes and you're having trouble with it, just refer to this video and you're set. If you like this, of course, I'm going to be doing more of these how-tos on an ongoing basis, so make sure you subscribe to the Ultimate RC Network channel at youtube.com/user/ultimatercnetwork, and I will see you next time.